going.
All right. Well, I'm curious what questions are you interested in answering? Because I have the impression that you're doing a lot of investigation and you're very, very curious, but I want to know what you think it is that you're curious about.
What questions am I interested in answering? Is that what? Sorry, it's still cutting out, kind of glitchy.
I'm going closer to my internet, so my
Oh,
internet,
okay.
what do you call it, the router.
Yeah. We'll see if that. I don't know. Maybe
See
that'll
if that
help.
does this.
Mitch said he's on his way home. So was it the question was what questions am I interested in answering?
Oh, yeah, I can ask it again if you'd like.
No, I mean if that was it. So there's I guess I don't know. There's this verse in the book of Enoch. Now I'll go here, and he says, like God's showing him all this stuff, and then God shows him this tree, and I'm guessing I think it's the tree of life. I don't know, and he says he's just like blown away just by looking at it, and then he says to the whatever angel's talking to him, and he says, I want to know everything, but especially about this tree. And I don't know why that always stuck out to me. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just like, I just love wisdom. I think ever since I was like little, I think I always in the Bible, Solomon always intrigued me just because I think for that fact that the one thing he wanted was wisdom. And so I think that's, I guess that would be my answer. Like I want to know everything, but not like, it's weird because it's not like I want this extreme amount of knowledge. Because I think wisdom involves not knowing things too. Like even the child can have more wisdom than an adult, in a lot of circumstances. Because it's not just knowing things; it's like how to properly incorporate what you know and everything, and how to. Yeah. So I don't know. There's a verse in Ecclesiastes that's one of my favorite verses too, where it says, "All this I proved by wisdom. I said I'll be wise, but it was far from me." And it's like that's the man that God said was the wisest man in all the earth, and he still at the end of his life says wisdom was far from me. Like that's the one thing I proved by wisdom is that wisdom was far from me. So it's kind of like I don't know this pursuit of wisdom, but I guess I don't know. It's kind of a vague question, so I guess that's why my answer is very vague. I don't know. I want to know everything, but what would you say to that? Do you have?
Well, I want to ask you another question first.
Okay, yeah.
You said, well, one, it was Enoch that said that he wants to know everything, but especially about the tree?
Yeah.
And does the text reveal what was mysterious about the tree?
I can go get the book and read it. I don't think it really says exactly. I mean, I don't think it says it reveals what I don't think it says like, oh, the tree's Jesus or anything like that. I think it's just the tree of life. So I don't think it's necessarily says, oh, the tree is this or it's that. You could say the tree's wisdom if you want, because I think it says in Proverbs, wisdom is a tree of life. I think there's lots of different trees of life. But yeah, I don't know. He sees that. Yeah, I don't think it really says exactly specifically what it says. I mean, if you want me to go get
it sounds like it's implied that we're meant to think of the tree of life.
Yeah. I think it is the tree. It says it is the tree of life in there, but I don't think it says like, oh, this is what the tree of life is or something like that,
Right.
So
is it disheartening to you to know that this is something that you want, this is something you want to pursue, but people who have pursued it famously have said that they didn't come close
to
meeting
wisdom
their goal?
or no, I think that's the joy of it. There's I think George MacDonald even said that too. He says like when there's like every revelation is just a tiny revelation. It's never a full revelation, because if it was, then it would be the depth of revelation, and so you'd have nothing else to look forward to. So it's kind of this, I don't know. I think that's the joy of it, is you're always searching. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it is that I think I'm just really curious in what's meaningful in the meaningful questions, and
Mm,
I'll ask why a lot, and so I feel like I'm just digging all the time. It seems like.
mm. Were you always this way, or did something happen to you that made you interested in these kind of questions?
Um, I think when I was little, I might have been. It's hard for me to fully recall because I remember when I was younger, like oftentimes I'd even be sitting at the dinner table with people and they'd be like, "Oh, I just like space out because my mind would just go somewhere else. I'd be thinking about things."
Yeah.
Or I remember sometimes when I was little, I just ask weird questions too, or I think weird would sometimes be considered weird. But then I know in college I don't think I was necessarily like that because I just kind of had fun and I don't think I was really thinking too. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I was, but not. I definitely wasn't searching or digging into looking for what's meaningful. I think I was just arrogant and you know kind of think you have it
Mm,
figured out or something. I don't. So
mm,
probably not always. Maybe when I was younger, then kind of left that, then came back to it later. So
mm. It's ironic. I've heard a lot of people say that when they were. Can you hear me?
yeah. Mhm.
I've heard a lot of people say that when they were college age, and I include myself in this category, they didn't take their own growth or their own uh, development seriously, which is ironic given that that's what you're meant to be doing that time. I wonder if we should if we should consider pushing that rite of passage further down uh, the line of our development. Let's say you're 30 years old and then you go and you do this grand education where you make a choice about what your life is going to be about.
That would be interesting. Yeah, because well, when you look at Moses's life, although he lived a long time, but he didn't really come around till he was like 40, right? That's when he saw
Mm,
the bush. Yeah, I don't know. That'd be interesting because I know in college though, it seems like a lot of people are trying to figure out what they want to do. So I don't
mm.
know. I guess they're looking. I mean, you've seemed to be always be that way, right? Would you say you've always been?
Uh, Not necessarily. There's lapses in it. I have this perpetual experience of looking back on myself and thinking that I have no idea what I was doing, and that's probably not. I'm sure that other people experience that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. From what it seemed to me, it seemed like you were always kind of more um pursuing something meaningful and not just like wasting time. You know.
I wasted a lot of time. I'll tell you that.
I don't know. I don't know
Mm.
about that.
So if you were to imagine yourself, and it doesn't matter what amount of time, but do you have any inclination of this self that you could attain that would be that you're aiming at?
What are we looking at? Like 10 years,
Yeah,
5 years?
I don't know what is it that you when you imagine uh, your most, let's say, activated self. What is that? What is that person up to, and how would they be different than you are now?
Man, that's a interesting question. Ah, I like how this is like a flipped interview somehow. Now I'm like getting an interview. This is weird. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I feel like I've talked to this, I think with Natalie. Natalie helped me with this, so I think a long time ago, a little bit. Because I mentioned that to her, is like I don't feel like I've ever really been able to see far down the line.
Mm,
And she said some people are better at that. And she said some people it's just like you just see the next step in front of you is all you really see. And
mm,
I mean, if I'm honest, I never really even expected to be alive this long. So like not necessarily like I thought I was gonna die. It's just like I just didn't see that. Like I didn't see myself
mm,
being out of my 20s. Like I don't know that if I thought some accident would happen, I just didn't, it's like although every year I kind of feel like I'm gonna die, but I think that's just the seasons because winter's coming and it's like everything's dying. So Yeah.
Mm.
But it caused me to, I think, be more productive. But I don't know where. Yeah, that's kind of hard to say. I've never really had a um I've always kind of struggled with that, I guess, having a far off future goal or something. And yeah, I don't know. I probably should get better at that. So I have something more to work towards. But
I'm curious. The reason I ask is because I have the impression that you're aiming at something.
yeah, I mean
Like
I think I
like you're trying to embody something that's greater than what you are.
yeah, I guess so. I mean, aren't we all? I guess so.
Not everybody I know.
Yeah, I think it's something meaningful. I'd like to leave behind something meaningful. Maybe that's what
Mm,
it is. So that's why I don't really have like necessarily an image of a future self. It's more like if I could get something to leave that's worthwhile when I go, not something
mm,
material. Like that's not what I mean at all. Just like even like this George MacDonald book that we're gonna
yeah.
look at. Like it's like this is a I mean, he died in the 1800s. This book is over 100 years old, and it's like now I'm reading it. It's like that would be I think that would be meaningful to have something like
Mm,
that where like it could even sit for 100 years and then it just touches one person down the line or something. It
mm,
would just be neat. But I don't know how you really go about doing that. And it's strange because I don't think even it's even in right now a lot of the stuff that I personally seem to be like chomping on and getting meaning from is like podcasts and YouTube videos and things like that. But at the same time,
mm,
I'm like, it's nothing like books. Like there's something about a book where it's just like all these podcasts and everything I feel like could just disappear like that. Maybe they won't. I don't know. But
mm.
I mean, if you lose the internet, they're gone, I guess. But a book
It,
you could go find.
it feels eternal somehow.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know what it is.
Mm,
Yeah, and it's more tangible. You can hold it, smell it. I don't know. So it'd be cool to
mm.
write, I think, a story or something like that. I don't know that that would be an aim necessarily. It would just be, yeah, I don't know what the aim is, man. It's kind of weird.
Mm.
It's hard to not be, it's hard to make sure I'm not being selfish too, because it's like,
I know what you mean.
are you just doing something to be remembered? So people, yeah, or you're trying to affect this person to help this person just so like you'll make an impact in the earth so people will remember you. It's
Mm,
yeah, I don't know.
mm.
What about you,
There,
man? Sorry, go ahead.
well, what do you? I mean, imagine. I was struck when we were talking about George MacDonald earlier. I was just on his Wikipedia page, and so he wrote Phantastes or published it when he would have been in the ballpark of 34 years old.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and it was his first book,
Really?
or at least that's the way that it looked to me naively.
Yeah.
So I try to imagine what would it be like if he was one of our friends and we talked to him, because you had the sense of reading this page that he corresponded with a lot of other people and that he had a lot of friends. I wonder if he was on, if he was in our group message, if he was on our video calls, what would he be saying and what would he be, what did it feel like for him to start writing that book? Was it a grand, thing that he planned out for 5 or 10 years before? Did he just sit down and let it flow? I, I don't
Yeah.
know. I have no idea what it was like, but
Yeah. I don't know. That would be a dream to have him in on this conversation. Yeah, I don't know what it would be like. It's weird. Yeah, it's weird when you read it because mm, yeah, I don't know how to describe it. It's like I can see everything that happens. Like even just rereading it this first three chapters, I'm like everything makes sense to me. Like that's why
mm,
I told John, I was like, it'd be fun if we got into chapter three because I'm like, that's when, like when I read that chapter, that's kind of when I started believing in fairies. Cause I'm like, oh, well now it makes sense. Like if this is what he's
mm,
talking about, if this is what people mean by fairies, then I'm like, yeah, they obviously exist to me. I think so. But then,
mm,
and so like each thing he's going through in like fairyland, it's like uh, it makes total sense. And like it feels like you're kind of like walking through a dream or something in a way. You're like
Mm,
walking through the woods at night and things are manifesting on your subconscious and you're trying to put them in poetic form and poetic words or something. And language never does it justice though, trying to figure it out. But it's
mm.
right. The book, I wonder if he actually lived it. You think? What do you think about that? Or do
Do you
you think
mean
he just
like he experienced it in a
and wrote it in
dreamlike
hindsight?
way or in a hallucinogenic type of way?
No, like he just experienced it and wrote it hindsight. Like not necessarily he was taking the hallucinogen, but just he went out. So there's the part where he is in the woods, and you know the beech tree part where he like gets terrified. He's in the woods like at nighttime,
Yeah.
and the what is it, the alder tree tries to grab him or something, and so it's like
Yes.
uh so I was reading that again and I was like, man, I had that same experience in the wood. Like, and I could rewrite my experience and write it that way. Although
Mm,
like you don't nothing like that. You're not literally being traced by it, like chased by a tree or anything, but it's like the spirit of this knobby tree, whatever this
mm,
is. But so like at New Year's, I thought I'd go out and sleep in the woods by myself. And I was
yeah.
just, so I walked like probably 2, maybe 3 miles into the woods. And I was just like, so I was like way back in the woods. And then, I mean, it was on a trail, but there's like no one out. It's the middle of the night. And so,
Right.
and then like I get there and right when I'm getting to the spot where I was going to sleep, like I just like, it was just a creepy night. And I just remember
Mm,
like, just like kind of the same thing where you're like trying to avoid this fear, but it just keeps like for some reason intensifying. And all I can
mm,
describe is like it just felt like the woods didn't want me there. And that's
mm,
like the only way I know how to describe it. It was just like it felt like there was something in the woods that just was like, you should not be here right now. And I don't even know how to describe it. And because like I think it was a week before that, I went to the same spot and slept perfect peace. Like just
mm,
and then I went that night and it was just terrifying for some reason. And so I'm like, I could
mm,
look back on that night and say, um, like, oh, this happened and right, like try to see the spirit of what was going on maybe rather than like
mm,
just the things that happen in the natural and then say and then like even uh and if I wrote it that way I feel like it'd be relatable because that part in his book was kind of relatable to me because I was like, man, I felt like I almost had a similar experience to that in a way, although I didn't
mm,
come across a beech tree, so I just ended up getting out of there.
mm,
Probably should have stayed. So something like that, like maybe he did had this experience or went out into the woods at night and then was
yeah.
just went out and then experienced what was there and then in hindsight wrote down, okay, this what was going on or this
Right.
was
This might be an embellished version of
yeah, I guess you could say that.
some real experiences.
Yeah, or
Or
just why. I mean, I think people have those too, where you'll have spiritual experiences in nature, and so it's like, and then they'll really stick with you, and it's like, why is this
mm,
different? Or you could come across like hundreds and hundreds of cedar trees or something, and then all of a sudden one just stands out to you, and it's like,
mm,
why is this highlighted? Why is this? I don't know. It's things like that, and it'll just be like,
mm,
or this specific moment where this tree was just like, so you were out walking in the woods, and it was just the perfect timing, the perfect shade, the perfect
yeah.
comfort, or something. And so you're trying to describe that comfort, and it comes as a motherly way, because
Mm,
there's like a motherly spirit, a feminine spirit that's actually embodying that tree. That's so impactful on your own life and your own consciousness that it's like undeniable. Where you're like, this is a little bit beyond just any normal tree because there's all these beech trees out here. But then for some reason, and I guess you
mm,
could say you're making it up in your head or you're hallucinating or something, but it's, I don't know.
mm.
But it's like, what, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think you're asking an interesting question. Where, like, what was the source of the story?
Yeah.
Because it, like you said, it could have come really naturally from an experience he had and he thought about it, or otherwise. Well, it's interesting because sometimes I suppose your experiences are a lens that your subconscious or a filter that the subconscious flows through. Because we could just sit here and we could just brainstorm some story, and it could involve the woods.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. And you,
either way, I mean, I think we're asking the same question, which is, how do you get in touch, or how do you have a free flowing relationship with that place where things come from? That
this spirit realm, I guess you could say. I don't really know.
yeah,
Or fairyland. Fairyland.
the inkwell, the yes,
Yeah.
potentiality, the dream world.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Have you ever had experiences like that?
Like you described, yeah, yeah, it actually involving trees too. But I have an experience frequently of having just really vivid, bizarre dreams of things that I wouldn't I wouldn't imagine when I was awake. Uh, And it, I don't know if you have this. It's just the sensation that it's not me coming up with this.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
it's like something I'm observing, or like something that is just
Yeah. It's outside of you. Yeah. It's not your
exactly,
subconscious. It's like, yeah, it's
yeah,
the other consciousnesses, whatever's out there. That's why, yeah.
yeah. And even if it's, I mean, even if it's, I don't have any reservations with saying my subconscious, but even if I say my subconscious, it's still this place that things flow from, that I'm not doing intentionally.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very mysterious. Well, we have there's a question I talk about sometimes. Maybe you and I have talked about it, but I'll talk about it specifically with people who consider themselves artists or musicians.
Mhm.
There's a bit in all of the heroic archetypal stories where the hero will make a pact with the transcendent. Have we talked about this?
I think a little bit. Yeah.
Well, do you remember when in The Lion King, when Simba is hanging out in the jungle doing nothing with his buddies, and he has this incident where his childhood friend comes and she judges him, uh, and she says, "You're not living up to your purpose," and this causes him to rethink everything. So he goes out into the field at night, and he's out there, and he sees in the stars his father, and he makes this kind of agreement, and this is like the birth of him returning to his calling. And that pattern is the pact with the transcendent. And that's a fundamental element, is before you can be a hero, before you can attain your purpose, you have to have a relationship, a binding relationship with something that is infinite. And in the case of the artist, what's interesting is they seem to have made a pact with that source of, let's call it the subconscious, with that place where things flow from,
Mhm.
and they dedicate their life to that. And
Yeah.
I'm very interested in anybody who's able to, who really has a free flowing type of relationship with this thing. I'd like to know how they've learned to do it.
Yeah. I would. I'd love to know how to do that as well. That one girl,
Mhm.
Emily, I talked to, it seemed like she was, I think, an artist before she took psychedelics, but
Mm,
she said her art changed after that. But I know
mm,
what you mean. There just seem to people that can like just click over into that flow. Like even my cousin
mm,
Jonah says he can just kind of when because he writes, he's a writer and stuff, and so he says he can just kind of click over into that and just get into the story and just start writing. And
mm.
I haven't found that I can do that either.
I bet we should practice.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, probably that would probably help. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what do you think? I kind of want to ask you the same question though, like where you were saying um the future self. Do you have that where you are aiming at something? Like what are your aims and where you're trying to head?
Well, it's a tricky question. I've had the feeling that I'm approaching some kind of clarifying event where uh, where I sacrifice parts of my life in pursuit of something more, and that's frightening. And we talk about this before in relation to psychedelic events, because oftentimes people, it's this trade where you say, I don't know what I'm giving, I don't know what part of me will be changed, and I don't know what I'm going to get in exchange. It's like someone comes to you and they say, I want to, will you accept the deal? And you say, well, what are the terms? And they say you can't know until after the deal.
Yeah.
And do you take it? And I just have this premonition that there's something of that character
Hmm.
looming in my life.
Is it this desire for like to kind of engage in that like subconscious or imaginal space that you're talking about, where you're kind of wanting to sacrifice to get more into that?
It has to do with that.
Yeah. That's a little bit scary, I think, because
Yes,
you kind of feel like you have to give up a little bit of your logic, and
yeah.
or that's how it was. That's how it was, and kind of is for me. I think I've gotten more comfortable at doing that now, where I'm like,
Mm,
I wrote. It was that's kind of, I think, a little bit what I was getting at when I said I had all those weird experiences with the moon last year, because it was just like
mm,
this, like that
yes.
lunar tick, there's the connection with that word. And I remember I wrote like a little short like poem or something, and it was like it was about let me see, maybe I can just bring it up on my phone. I don't know. I want to read crappy poetry out here though, but um I don't know if it's on here. Anyways, it was basically talking about like how I had this longing for like things to be, yeah, I guess people are talking about that anyway, like enchanted in a way, and think for like things to be magical and not just so material and everything. But it was just kind of like, why do I long for this? Do I really want to engage in like some type of madness? Like you feel like you kind of have to engage in madness a little bit. And I think that's what's scary about it, because you're kind of having to go into that, like you said, that dark space, that subconscious space, where
Mm,
it's like, okay, I don't know what I'm gonna find down there, and I'm gonna have
mm,
to make almost like sacrifice uh, some some mental stability. Or does that make sense? Maybe that's the wrong way of saying it. It makes it sound like you're making yourself go crazy, but you're kind of, I guess, you're willing to give up what you think you firmly know in order to explore uh, what could be, if that makes sense.
yes,
It's
yes.
like a call into the dark woods. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Mm.
That's cool though, that you're, so you think that you said you feel like you're at a threshold, and then you think that if you make that step and make these sacrifices, whatever they might be, you think from there you'll get more clarity into what is the future.
Well, specifically, I spent a lot of time writing in the last year, and I suspect I'll continue to do that. And there are some questions that I'm interested in, but I I'm at a point where I have so many notes about them, and not answers so much as I've done a pretty complete job of writing the question,
Oh yeah.
and paths to explore. And it's the kind of thing that I need to organize in some form, and it could take the form of a book. And I wondered about doing something more like that, but I've wondered about, the trajectory of my own professional career. And um, I really like what I do, but it doesn't it's not something that really speaks to me in an ultimate kind of way. And
Mhm.
I think that's fine. I think that's really fine.
It's not like a life's work type thing.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that everybody should go and do what they think is their life's work.
Yeah.
as their primary thing that they do. But I kind of suspect that might become a bigger part of my life.
Yeah.
And
Hmm. Do you think
Hmm.
that looks like writing, or you kind of want it? That's what you're.
That's what feels natural.
That's good. That's cool. That's really cool.
Um,
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I kind of know
I
what you
wondered if
mean. Sorry, go ahead.
I get the sense that us and our friends, the people we talk with regularly, are inclined similarly, and I wonder if we should all make some kind of pact together to to take what we're doing and try to make it more formal.
Yeah, I'd be totally down for that.
Mm,
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's kind of, I don't know why that's the one thing that I think interests me. I never wanted to write either. I never wanted to be a writer, but I think it was actually once I read Fantasties where it was like, if I
mm,
could write something like this, like then it might be
mm,
worthwhile to me. Because the
mm,
way that story, I feel like that book really, I think, saved me. It's probably, probably something traumatic or whatever, but it was really, it came at the right time, is all I can say. And it
mm,
still is just such a comforting book to me. Every time I read it, I'm just like, man, I would love to write something like this. So I think I'm kind of where you're at, where my profession and my job is my profession and my job in a way. It's like how I make money, but where
yeah.
I think I would find meaning is maybe writing something and
Mm,
leaving something like that behind. And I kind of wonder though, if I were to actually make money off of what I what I think is more meaningful, if that would kind of maybe ruin it for me.
mm.
So I don't. Do you experience that or no?
Well, I don't think I'm in any danger of making money off of the things that I'm interested in.
Well, I don't think I am either. But I'm saying, like, if you
Yeah,
had a book deal or something, like, do you think it'd kill the
totally.
book for you? Yeah.
Well, you wonder how that might change you.
Yeah. 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 I kind of almost wish like I could write something and then nobody read it till after I'm dead. I think that would be fun. I don't know why.
Mm, mm.
Like I wouldn't want to see money off it, I don't think.
Yeah, I think that'd be really funny.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd love to make a pack though. I was actually thinking, so this so I have a question first. What are you writing, like fiction, or are you writing
It's both. It's what I'm interested in are specific questions, uh, things I don't know the answer to, and um, I with each of those questions, I'll write about it in two ways. One is just thoughts about it and things that I've come across um, where I've read someone else who
Mitchell's
write
here?
write something related to it. Get them in here.
It's coming in. So yeah, so sorry. Let me interrupt. Oh, Mitch says he doesn't have audio or video. I don't know what's going on.
It's just lurking.
He's just like,
Hey
you there?
man,
Hey,
Hey, Mitch.
hey,
what's
man.
going on?
Not
Mitch,
much.
Mitch, we want to invite you into a pact.
Uh-oh, let's see. I'll consider it for sure.
Do you have a knife or a sharp object near you?
Mhm.
I'm
I'm
just like,
still listening. Yeah, you haven't lost me yet.
all right, we'll get it and take your hand.
Okay.
So I suppose what we're talking about is taking more seriously uh, our kind of exploring the things we've been talking about and the things that we're interested in writing. And Jason and I both had the feeling um, it would help us to think about them, and it would be uh, it, it, it feels like the natural thing to do to embody these things, and instead of kind of talking about them and letting them float off, but to try to pin them down. And uh, that would allow us to be more critical about them and get more to the bottom of whatever it is that we're on about.
I think you're totally on the right track, man. I'm in. Give me that
Whatever it is
knife.
we're on.
Give me that palm. Let's go.
The blood pact isn't really something that works virtually.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, so we're just talking about what Craig asked me these pretty heavy questions of where where my future was going, stuff like that, and what I would and we were just kind of getting around like what was meaningful in writing and stuff like that. So Craig was just I didn't mean to interrupt, but what were you saying about you're formulating the questions and you're writing in a fictional way to address these questions, or
Mm-hmm. Mitch, yeah,
That's
we're
cool.
talking about what we imagine the more activated and aligned variations of ourselves would be like, and what we're aiming at.
what's your answer to that question, Mitch? Do you know?
This is so bad. I just had to do a job interview, and I'm famously bad at them because so much of them is like, tell me what your goals are, tell me what your future plans are, and tell me what you're about. And for me, it's always so nebulous, and that could be a bad thing. You should pin down these sorts of things, but my feeling is that if I think about the most activated version of myself, it's turning up the volume on things that I'm already whacking at every day. It's a series of personal principles that one wants to try to live by, and then how to sharpen those principles and file away the dead parts of them, and which that's something you can still put down on paper. So I guess I can't go on avoiding these sorts of things forever. The most activated version of yourself, the dream version of yourself, what would they be doing and what would they be about? For me, yes, it's what I'm about right now, except better at it.
So why is that? Do you have a reason why? Like, is
A
it?
reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what would that look like? I guess. I mean, was that to be, influence and help the people around you in a way, or I mean, what? I guess when Craig asked me the question, my thought was like, and when you're talking about a job interview, like what your goals are, where someone would ask me that, like my thought is like, for some reason, my mind always just kind of goes to like, well, almost like death, like, oh, when I'm done and I'm here, like what was the point of it all, like sort of thing, and can I leave something behind? Like if I actually pursued those virtues and became the best version of myself, like what purpose, like what's the, and so that was kind of my thought. I was like, well, maybe I could write a book. I don't know, like, because then we were kind of talking about George MacDonald too. Like now we're reading this book that sat there for over 100 years. It's like something like that. I don't know.
But there's even got to be a why to the book too, right? The book is still one on the pile of things that you're putting toward the why.
Yeah. Like, is it a on earth as in heaven type thing? Like you're trying to manifest that sort of?
Yes,
Probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to put it. And anything you leave behind is just to keep that idea alive and to keep that idea strong. If it's a book or if it's a something meaningful interaction that you've made with other people or the next generation, it's in the interest of that why.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I guess, I mean, it doesn't have to be writing either, because it's just, I mean, I like the fact that this book is over 100 years old and like I just read it, and it's like, that's kind of cool that, and a lot of people don't even know about him, and it'd be cool to, so I mean, I kind of like that idea personally, but I mean, you think about even what Barnabas in the scriptures, he just went and prayed for Paul, and then Paul wrote all these. So like just even having that that effect on someone in that way, like just Barnabas, or was it? No, it wasn't Barnabas. It was whatever his name was, Ananias or something. He was just praying, and so him just pursuing this better version of himself led him to go pray for this man that I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of I guess that's a good way of manifesting it out on earth as in heaven. Keep the dream alive.
I think what the pact, the core of the pact is very good. I was on the way over here. I was thinking about doing this, and I was like, I was thinking about this book. Actually, it's right here because Laura's turned it into something decorative. This honker took up my past year. It was a gift from my high school English teacher, and it's a biography about a guy named Lytton Strachey. And most of the stuff that he gets about this guy is, I was telling Craig about this a little bit. I may have mentioned it to you, Jason, but all of the stuff that they have about this guy is his letters, between him and other people. And really most of them also made a significant mark. So most of the people that you read about him corresponding with, you kind of recognize their names. And I was like, man, this is not, I don't think anybody in this of us three has a real big desire to be famous per se, and actually maybe even the opposite direction. But I think there's an equal desire to do something impactful or to contribute to the world.
Yeah.
And so I was like, then I was like, these are sort of more like the letters, but also significantly, they put things down. They have a series of books or plays or paintings. They made something concrete. Their ideas didn't stay in the letters. They coalesced into something that was more concrete, that could be passed down and protected. I think the core of this pact is a very good one. If I'm understanding.
In the case of us specifically, it feels like we gravitate to each other and we keep talking to each other because we're interested in the same questions. And maybe in the most general way, it feels like we're all interested in understanding our own context, and given that, the knowledge of what our situation is, how do you respond to that, and what's the right way to live based on your impression of the place we find ourselves in. And we talk about it a lot, and we all have different but similar models of this, and we like to critique them. But it's what strikes me is that we don't ever really either deliver or receive any kind of criticism about these ideas in kind of in actually embodied form, where I might say a standalone sentence, and you guys evaluate it kind of on its own, but not in the not in the context, not in relation to how it fits into kind of the larger question that we're all getting at, or questions that we're getting at. And so if I feel like if we're going to do this thing seriously, let's try to get this stuff in it. Let's systematize it. Let's embody it and say, this part of it this part is really good. This part of it's not working. And just get to the bottom of this thing, because I feel like it's like we're all up to the same thing, but our process sucks. It doesn't
going
suck.
in circles up here.
It's good, but it could be better. It's good, but the refinement, it's all kind of emergent. It's not like there's a body of, it's not like it lives anywhere and it's evolving over time. It's just that it's evolving in our own, in our own memory.
Well, we're not tracking it per se, or at least not in an organized way, so that when we find a conclusion but I think it's because of the divergence a little bit, Craig, because we may find something foundational that we all like, and we say, okay, here it is, let's stick it there, we're all good on this one, and then we try to build on it, but we've diverged, and so then we have to start building two separate things. Of course, all this, you're right, could be systematized in a way that was helpful.
Well, even if it's not as if we're gonna write this big collection of something that we all think is right, but like even independently, just say, you know, here's what I think this place is. Here's what I think should be done about it, and you know, to present that to each other and tear it up and try to refine it and make it better.
Present it in what regard? Like,
Say like here's a paper I wrote. It has these sections, and this is. Do you think that this is a question worth asking? Do you think this is an answer that withstands questioning? And
This is fun. I like
so
this.
do we have an assignment?
Okay. Yeah, so here's what I was thinking. That this is an assignment, but this has actually crossed my mind a few times because this is kind of a little bit related to what I didn't do a lot of writing last year because I just was like dabbling in it and I never even tried writing before. But the little stuff
Mm.
I had written seems to be extremely scattered all over the place, and I have no idea what to do with any of it. It's like I think I have a beginning and I think I have an end, but all this other stuff in the middle, I'm like, I was discovering characters, like kind of like we talked about, Craig, like you're finding these characters kind of like within you, even characters without you, and it's like I don't know how they're gonna meet. I don't know what the heck they're doing. But then I was thinking about it more recently, and I was like, you know, if I could even get them like the Arthurian stories
Hmm.
would be something I think is feasible in my head, where like you're kind of talking about we would have a question, so you have a quest, and then like let's go on this quest, and then it's
Hmm.
that's like a short story in its own self in a collection to a larger whole.
Totally. Yeah, this is really interesting because that's in a lot of ways it feels like this is what a lot of authors do when they're in or artists do when they're in a predicament like us. So for example, like Dostoevsky's trying to ask a question about different approaches to things like crime, things like justice, and he'll write all these characters with different opinions. No joke, they're like strong characters, and he just makes them battle it out. You know, and that's what you described too. Is you have these micro situations that feel like they're relevant, and so you just let them kind of let these characters play with each other in an arena, and you have a story, and it tells you something about what it was you were interested in the first place. Maybe.
Yeah, no,
Is that the way you see it, or how do you think about
I think so.
what's the role of fiction?
I think I think hopefully that it ends up being helpful. I think that's the hard part for me. I feel like is if I'm being honest, if I'm really being honest, then I think it's helpful. But sometimes it's hard to not mix in my own thoughts or my own opinions. Does that make sense? It's really kind of strange. Like it's kind of like you were talking about earlier, where you're kind of letting go of your own logic or something to go into this. I don't even know if imaginal is the right type of word, this other space, the subconscious space, and really try to pull something out of there that's true and meaningful and really be honest about it. Like I guess to give one example, like I tried to write this scenario where this one character is having for some reason, and I don't know why, I just had this part where I was like, this one character is going to have to choose between the mother and the child type thing. And and the only reason I think that that character would have to choose something like that is because he's seeing things too black and white, where things can't actually coexist anymore because there's too much of a hard line of division. I have to choose this or the other type thing. And so, but then I was just going back and like I had read what I written. And I was like, this doesn't even really make sense. And so I was going back and I was like, okay, if this character, this mother, so the child character, basically, I'll just I've been it's kind of weird too because I don't know what to keep secret because you're kind of keeping these things, like you're probably experiencing that, where you're kind of like keeping these things to chew on them more within yourself before you actually get them out there. So the child character is kind of like this little girl, and she's like paints and stuff too. And so but I was just thinking like, okay, if she was kind of in a dire place and this other character is having to choose, I was just trying to put her in a place of distress, and I just was like trying to describe it, and I was like, okay, so she's in a corner and it's a box. And I'm like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, I've been being honest. There's like language just starts to fail. And it ends up being something weird where like she's stuck, like what she's trapped in is like, I want to say jaggy. I can't describe it. Like it's very hard corners, and it's like a box. She's in the, and it's constricting at the same time. And it's like, but how did I describe that in words? Like this childlikeness is being compressed in a very like inside a square. I don't know how else to describe it or something. Like does it even make sense? It probably doesn't make any sense, but I'm like, if I'm trying,
Is it more like a square or more like a maze? When you said jagged, I was picturing.
no,
Um,
yeah, I feel like in this scenario, it's more like a square. It'd be kind of like if you came to the end of the maze and then you're there and you just find it to be not what you hope for. And this, whatever's around you in this childlikeness is whatever's trying to destroy this childlikeness has put it in a corner or something, and put where the corner, what's surrounding the child is very, it's not circular, it's not like smooth, it's very just hard, but it's like constricting, and it's not like pointed, like it's sharp or anything. It's just like very solid, like the child's in a brick and the brick is being compressed or something. Does that even make sense? But I feel like that's me trying to be more honest about what I'm getting at, and then it's hard to find the language for it, and then it's very hard for me to write about because it's like I don't know how to put that into words.
I
This
wonder.
is-
I wonder if that's when. Does it feel like the words aren't right because it's too fantastic that it's not?
Yeah, maybe. And it's weird too because that doesn't even feel like that's a personal thing that's going on in my life. It's just like, it's kind of like you're talking about. I feel like there's a question there for some reason. I don't even know necessarily what the question is. I guess it's maybe like, and maybe that is the question I'm trying to get at, is we do that with childlikeness. Like when childlikeness tends to be free and open, and then we start to kind of destroy it with logic in a way. And we make it into little bricks and really solidify things. And so maybe that's what I'm trying to describe in my head or something. And I don't know that I'm personally going through that. It's just like maybe that's what's there. And that's what I mean when I'm really trying to be honest about whatever I'm getting at. It seems to, I feel like the language is there, but then it's just hard to really, I guess, grasp at. But I feel like it ends up being more meaningful. Like it's almost more vague, but it ends up being more meaningful, if that makes sense.
Mm,
Because I could just write something and say like, oh, this villain came up and he tied up the child and threw her on the railroad tracks, and it's like that's a story too. But like, if I'm being honest about what I'm trying to get across, it's like, well, the child's like in the square, in the square sucks, and it's
mm,
constricting, and it's getting worse and worse, and the square is like hardening, and it's not. And I think what I wrote was like the square, the whatever this is not, it's not like, it's not, with age it's not crumbling, it's not like whatever the squares the child's in is not crumbling away. Like age is not causing it to crumble away, it's just causing it to petrify and harden and compact even more. And it's like, yeah, does that make sense? I don't know, that probably don't make sense. It probably is too fantastical, but I feel like it, for me, I feel like it hits at something more in here that's not here. Does that make sense? Like it's beyond my knowing, but it's like it resonates more.
Well, it
I'm-
just needs the right medium and the right audience to receive it and make something of it, probably.
Yeah. And I'm trying not to be too obvious about things either, too, because sometimes if you try to be, I feel like, or at least personally, if I feel like I try to be too obvious about something, I don't want to dumb it down for the reader, or in a sense, where I'm like, oh, this is this, or this means this. Does that make sense? I don't, I don't even know if I'm on topic anymore, guys.
I know what you're getting at. Yeah, what you're saying makes sense.
The thing is, when I was listening to them, it's very difficult for me to get a handle on here. And that's probably what the idea is, right? That one keeps coming back to just having conversations and bebopping back and forth with each other is because the alternative, the concretizing part is very, very hard.
Right.
Very, very hard to do.
Totally agree.
So what do you think this pact would look like in a sense then, with things like that? Like, would that be kind of something similar where we would have this quest or question and then try to resolve the answer, I guess? Go on the quest. How do we
What
do
do you
that
think about
collectively?
what do you think about meeting another time, and we'll lay out what it is that we're interested in looking into, in the form of, here's a list of questions, here's one question, and then ask, is this formulated the right way? And then, or ask each other, is this a question worth asking?
Mhm.
And then maybe if we all think they're good questions, or even if maybe I have a question and you guys think it's crap, and I say, no, I think help me refine it, I think it's but I still want to ask, maybe we'll go from there, and then we'll come back next time when we'll have something like an answer, or at least an idea of what the answer might be, or how you
That
might
sounds
find
good.
it.
Sounds good to me. I'm really curious what some of these questions are, Craig, though. I want you to give me one now.
Choose your quest. Choose your quest, man.
Choose your
have one,
quest.
Mitch? Do you
That's a
have-
great way to say it, Mitch.
Do you have one, Mitch? Do you know?
Not in my pocket.
Not in my pocket.
You don't have any questions? No questions?
Not in my pocket. They're in the
What-
nightstand and some in the car and the console. I'll have to track them all down.
What's interesting to me is, like, I really want to find, yeah, like Craig is talking about, find the questions that are meaningful, and then figure out, yeah, how to go about answering it. I mean, I'm just thinking about the Bible also, and it's just like, I read that book and I'm like, why the heck would you write something like this? Like, why not make it more interesting? But it's like more meaningful. You know what I mean? It's not like everything about it's action packed. Like I was reading Leviticus today, and it's like, you could have written something else, like one of the Greek myths or something. Like, why did you write this? But I was just eating it up, man. And I was just sitting here thinking, like, what is going on with all this? Like, it's just like the depths of the weird symbolism and meaning that's all happening through it. I'm like, I can't even, like, it's just so mysterious, but it intrigues me so much, and it's lasted thousands of years, and it's like, it's crazy. It's like the Greek myths, people like those seem to have faded off a little bit more than, I mean, well, I guess they're still pretty popular, but I mean, other people have, like, a lot of people were just kind of coming back to more of the Egyptian mythology and stuff that kind of disappeared for a while. But it's like the Bible's just stuck there, and it's like, why? Like, why do people go read this book, Leviticus or Numbers? As people are walking through the desert, like, what is it about this that is just so? It's getting at the right questions, I think, and I'd like to do that as well.
I was thinking if a couple people, or all three people, or all whoever people, might end up going on the same quest, and that could be interesting.
The Holy Grail, is that it? That's the quest. The Holy Grail. I really want to know some questions, guys. Give me some. Let's do it.
But don't you know that people keep coming back to the Bible because it will make you wise for salvation?
So that's what we want to write. We need to write another Bible. So should we, when we meet up, should we just like keep these not recorded when we're doing these or no? Or record them for, I mean, we can record them. I don't have to post them. I could always just record them.
You
Decide
need
that
to have
later.
enough recordings for this size volume.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I don't know. I love exploring the questions with you guys. I feel like that's what we do a lot.
We just got to make sure we're not losing our findings.
That's right. Can I tell you what I did tonight? I realized that I want to remember. I feel like Jason, you were describing something abstract. You're talking about the story that you were imagining, and I asked you. I didn't know if I knew what you were getting at, but I asked you a series of really closed questions, like, is it because of this? And then something else that was like a yes or no answer. And I was like, these are not helpful questions.
No, what do you mean? I don't think they were not helpful. I think they're good questions.
Is it because you put the answer in his mouth, or because they were just binary answers? Or?
So, something like that.
No, I think that's what I like about it though, because I do the same thing, because like that's what I mean. I think where I was trying to say, where if I'm being honest with it, it almost leaves me with questions as well. I'm like, well, why does this feel more like what I should write rather than, and it's like, what's going on here? Like I wasn't thinking in my head when I was started writing that, when I was like, I just need to try to just write what feels right. I wasn't thinking in my head like, oh, the child would be in this box because it's like kind of how I described it. Like maybe that's what it is it's the childlikeness and the childlike play, like starting to be constricted and brought down. I mean, because we kind of do that. I mean, I'm not saying education's bad at all, but education can kind of do that in a way where I mean, I think it's natural as a child you do that. Everything is your imaginal realm and your reality are both like intermingled, and then you start to realize they're separate, and then your logic starts to like restrict the imaginal and dumb it down into and reduce it into all these forms. And so I think that's maybe what I was getting at, but I wasn't thinking that at all. So I think it's so I guess what I'm saying is like I think that's kind of what almost feels right about it to me though, is that it makes you ask those questions. It makes me ask those same questions too. I'm like, well, is it this? Is it this? Like, what is this? What's going on here? What's happening? Why is this taking place?
Well, it sounds like there's nothing wrong with closed questions, but I like what you said, Mitch, where I don't want it ever to feel like I'm trying to put the answer in your mouth. I think I asked you, is the structure more like a square or is it more like a maze?
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out it was nothing like a maze. And maybe I should ask more about the shape of it or something. I asked you.
I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's an unfair question though. I think that's a good question, because I think there's plenty of times where it is a maze, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly, I don't think it was a fatal mistake, but I'm.
Yeah. Are you in a maze right now? Do you got one that's going on in a maze?
No.
I do have a question for you, Craig, though. So what you've been writing with, have you been using the characters you mentioned to me like a year ago in your writings or no?
Yes.
You have? That's really cool. I'm really excited to hear some of this now. Nice. Do you have any characters?
But you know
Mitch?
what?
Sorry. Go ahead, Craig.
Can I go, Mitch? Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Well, the question we were talking about earlier, which is, what is this well integrated and harmonious version of this well aligned self look like? And what's been useful in my case is taking these sub personalities. Mitch, do you remember us having a conversation about the subpersonalities that are they're something archetypal that represents a motivation. Does this ring a bell at all?
I remember talking about archetypes with you, but
Mhm.
subpersonalities, that terminology, not so much.
Right. Well, let's say the 30-second version is I might find my own personality to be made up of this motivation that's extremely indulgent and excessive and childish and uh, powerful. Like, for example, I at times have this problem with like a problem with food, and I just eat like uh, an insane person. Like it's disorderly. It's totally disordered. And so there's this kind of indulgent part of me that comes out, and I um, dramatize it as this character that's a prince that is spoiled, and they get whatever they want, and they'll behead anybody who crosses them, and you know, and so on. And so there's all the, and that feels like an appropriate way to represent it, because I don't feel like I'm being simultaneous characters at once. It feels like like there's if there's a ship, they're taking turns being the captain, right? And so in trying to answer this question about what is my aligned self, the answer feels like a drama that has as characters all those characters that feel like they constitute me, and there's all these micro interactions where they're in situations where they have to interact with each other, and the drama is kind of emergent. And yet to see if that's a helpful exercise, or if it'll yield anything that is cohesive in the end. But that's what I'm on about.
So are you letting in your process, your characters take turns driving, and then the drama emerges from the different captains?
The story isn't actually isn't about a ship situation or a driving situation, but it takes place in an environment where where some of them interact with others, where they're all characters in the universe, let's say.
And at different times in the story, some of them maybe have the upper hand. I'm
Yes.
getting okay.
Well, it's less about the minute to minute kind of dominant struggle between them, but it's more about their relationships between each other and how those evolve over time.
Is this, you envision this as sort of a continuous narrative or anthology type situation? Or?
Oh, I don't know.
Do you think some of your characters might kill some of your other ones
That's what I wondered.
in your journey?
I wondered about that. I'm not sure.
So this is
I'm interested to talk to people, or to hear about experiences of people who feel like they've been successful at killing a part of themselves.
But you are drawing all of the characters from aspects of yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
this is a pretty specific operation I'm on about.
That was another thing that kind of, when you started telling me about that idea that you were doing, that actually inspired me to write as well, because it's so intriguing, and it's fun to actually find those characters. Like one I remember we mentioned a long time ago. So there's two characters, and there's a astrologer and what's the other one? The prospector. And for some reason I resonate more with like the prospector, like the digging down. Just feels more to me than going up. Like, do you have one that's exploring the heavens, the high and lofty ideas, and looking into things like that? Then the other one's like digging down for what's in the earth, maybe more staple things or
Yeah.
hidden gems, things like that.
All I can think of right now is there's a way to develop this into a board game.
Nice. Yeah. Dude, it probably should be. It's probably what's that game? The Dungeons and Dragons. It's probably that. Already.
Maybe that's in there. I've never played it, but a game that everyone sort of, even not from built into the game, but everyone selects an archetype for themselves and they see how those archetypes they select from themselves interact with each other, and they can
Mhm.
maybe supplant it with a different aspect of themselves and see if the game goes any better.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, that's I feel like it would make a killer board game. I'm
So-
imagining something like Clue.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. That's not a linear kind of thing, but yeah.
Mm,
So I have another question for you, Craig. So what do you do when not when someone else kills your characters, like Ruthie per se?
yeah,
'Cause now you're
that's
married.
interesting.
Some of them might die.
Well, I'm thinking that there may not be. I mean, the whole narrative, the whole drama may emerge. No, it may not never leave the confines of yourself. There may not be other characters at all. But I don't know
Mm.
that.
Hmm.
But my question is, um, this is us engaging with your quest in a way that's not very organized. But is there going to come a time where we're going to get to engage it in a more formalized way, like you were talking about earlier?
Oh, maybe so. Yeah, I think absolutely.
So
I'm not on a quest.
here's what'd you say?
I'm not on a quest.
You're not on a quest. You're on a quest. You don't even realize
Okay.
that you're on it. Yeah,
I realize it now. You've taught me
Yeah,
the
yeah,
error of
yeah.
my ways.
You're on it. You're on it. We're doing it right now.
Man, Jason, I feel like the prospector astronomer thing, it does, I think it does capture the difference and our interests when we're both embodying that value seeking thing. And I suppose it implies that I'm interested in trying to understand that things that are in the open,
Uh-huh.
and you're interested in exploring things that are covered.
Yeah. Yeah. Hidden. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Yeah. I think though, I do think that the characters, you will find characters that are definitely outside of yourself. And one of the reasons I say that is because I think they can take forms in temptations. So like if you're on a quest and you're seeking this answer,
Mm,
and you're pursuing this goal, this whatever this is, this answer, this telos, this end thing, these things, not necessarily even enemies, but just little temptations along the way to get you off your course, would be something
Mhm.
outside of you.
mm,
It might be cool to have one or more of the characters realize that one of the people in the end was not actually a part of yourself at all.
mm, mm.
Whoa, yeah, that would be crazy.
I've been thinking too much in terms of overall narrative arc. I'm spoiling the process.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
No, I don't think you are. Yeah, because it's like you still got to fill out the middle, man.
But you are envisioning what a fictional story, right? I'm not wrong. It's just
Yes.
like a novel kind of sensibility.
Yes.
I would say yes and no, because you're living it at the same time. You're just describing it fictionally, right?
Mm.
Or what?
But yes, but the relationships do evolve, and so I'm acting out a narrative.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. I feel like if you're being honest with it too, you're acting out the narrative, but you're at the same time discovering the narrative because you're living
Yeah.
it and then having to look look at yourself and be like, okay, this is what's going on here, and these
Mhm.
characters are doing this, and
Yeah, and you have to simulate the future too.
yeah, this is fun. I like this stuff.
Mm.
Mitch, do you have any characters?
I feel like the first time we talked about this, I made up my mind to really do some self-reflection and then just tabled it.
Just Dave.
You know how you do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
That-
weird. Sorry, go ahead.
After you,
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, like, sometimes trying to find the characters, I feel like I've discovered their archetype. A lot of times, I feel like they're archetypal characters. I don't know why I can't say that, except just in a different form or something. You know, like I'll be like, oh, this I'm noticing this character in myself, and then I'm like, oh, that's the same as in this other story. It just looks a little different. Like one, the obvious one would be like Mowgli or something. You know, I'm like, I feel like I relate to that character a lot. Probably not in a good way either.
Well, I'm interested to hear you say more about that because there's kind of a thematic thing in your art and in your interest, which is being in the woods, and
Yeah.
it's a very Mowgli thing. Could you elaborate on what about that is interesting to you?
I don't know. There's just something that resonates with me, like the where I think it is very wrong. I think it's the love of nature is a lot of it, but then where I think it's wrong, it's kind of in the Mowgli story and in the Tarzan story both, is you have this character that's kind of like a child of nature or whatever, and but then the wrong part is he sees humanity as the beast rather than nature. Like nature is more humane than society. And that's where I think it's true, because that's a true thing that happens probably all too much in society. But at the same time, I don't think it's right to view humanity that way. There's a quote by Rudyard Kipling, who wrote The Jungle Book, and I think it says something like, he says, I went to Chicago and there I just saw beasts and animals and things like that. I'm like, come on, man, that's a little rough. Like, it's probably true, but I don't know what it is. I resonate with, I feel like there's something in me that really just longs for that, though. Just that the woods and the lack of technology, and just going back to that, being dependent on just the being dependent and almost subject to, I don't know that I should say subject to, but you kind of are, though, if you're going into the woods. Like if you go camping, you got to deal with, if it starts storming, you got to deal with that, and it sucks. But then at the same time, if you, yeah, I don't know, we lose all these other things. There's just such a beauty to it, though. There's something that really tugs at me. Like it's just that there's such a beauty in nature.
I think it's because you have fairy blood, bro.
Probably it. It's probably
You never would have made it this far if you didn't have a little.
very fun. Yeah. So that, I mean, that character, though, so it's like Mowgli character is very similar to the Tarzan character. It's very similar to, is it Enkidu? Is that how you say it in the Epic of Gilgamesh? So that character pops up, but he's a little different like each time, but it's kind of there, you know. And it's a woman that always freaking kills him, you know. She'll do that.
She's coming for you.
That is worth thinking about.
What? The woman's coming for me?
Yeah.
My mom actually, right before we got on this call, I got home and my mom said, I had a dream about you last night. You asked a woman to marry you. And I was like, well, did she say yes? She was like, yeah. And I was like, well, who's this lady? She told me, and she didn't know. So
She'll be your downfall.
yeah, gotta watch out. That temptress.
Well, this is interesting. So do you interpret that the ending of the Jungle Book story and the ending of the Tarzan story as are they tragic, or is that a meaningful and satisfying ending
Oh, it's so tragic to me.
where they leave the jungle?
So tragic.
Right? Actually, I think in the Tarzan story, at least the Disney version, I think they stay in the jungle, right?
Yeah, in the Jungle Book, the live action one, he stays. I don't think he encounters the girl in that one. But I remember always thinking that
Oh,
That's the one thing I
live
did.
action in
Sorry,
live
go-
action Jungle Book, he goes after her.
He goes to the village, and I think in the sequel, you see him having life in the village.
Really? Wait, is this one with Bill Murray?
No, the
Oh, you said live action. I think I
oh,
jumped on. Yeah,
The cartoon one? Yeah, the
Yeah,
cartoon one.
totally.
Yeah, that always bothered me. I don't know why. I don't think it doesn't bother me as much anymore, but I remember hating it. I was like, he leaves his friends. Baloo, go back, Mowgli. Come back. Come back.
Hmm. And in the live action one, he said that he actually stays in the jungle.
Yeah, I don't think there's that scene where he sees the girl. So I think it's a kind of a little bit of a different story. I think it maybe follows more closely to the book. I can't remember exactly. I know in the book, so in the Jungle Book story, it's like a collection of different things. But the part that follows Mowgli, there's a part where he does go to a village and he kind of has a father and mother there. I think so they start raising him and stuff. And there's kind of like this head guy of the village, or he's kind of one of the higher ups. I don't know if he's the leader of the village. I can't remember what happens. I think maybe Mowgli goes back to the jungle or something. I don't know, but the guy, basically his parents that raised him, end up getting tortured by other people. And then he's just like, F this, I'm out. You guys are the animals. And so he's just like, he leaves after that. And I'm like, yeah. And so it's weird because it's like a story like that. It's a true story, but I don't know that it's right. What do you guys think? Because I feel like that story, to repeat that story over and over, is almost a harmful, or it could be a harmful message. What do you guys think?
It's similar in ways to the Superman story because it's somebody who is growing up in a context that they weren't intended to be in. And it's like
Yeah.
I suppose both of those are a little bit like the Jesus story.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the end, does Jesus conclude that they're the animals and go back to the? No, I don't know.
Yeah, see, I think that Jesus was cast out and rejected. And so I think that happens in the Superman, because they're the alien, they're the outsider, and that happens in Mowgli. And maybe Mowgli goes back eventually, but I think what the part about it that rubs me the wrong way is there's no reconciliation. He's just like, all right, I'm done. There's no forgiveness. You're cut off. I'm done with humans, sort of thing.
I don't remember super well, but in the live action, Mowgli does kind of save the jungle, right? Because there's like a huge fire that's happening. Or am I misremembering this? And,
yeah,
I think you're right.
Yeah,
And
I think he might cause it, but I don't know. Maybe not.
Oh gosh!
And then he fixes it.
But the animals, what's the animal's attitude to him in the beginning of the story?
Oh,
he's an outcast among his wolf brethren.
Yeah.
And so he ends up having to skedaddle from his pack, and then he connects with Baloo and co.
That sounds like Tarzan.
Yeah. It's a sad story because he doesn't fit in either world, He can't fit in with the animals. But.
And the stone that the builders rejected.
Yeah.
On the cornerstone.
know.
The Tarzan, is very Christological in a way.
Huh. Yeah. Another one that seems, sorry, go ahead.
No, keep it up.
Oh, I was just gonna say another one that seems a little bit similar to that seems to come up a lot, but I don't think it's the same. I don't think it's the same at all, but I think there's aspects of it, but it's the werewolf character, I feel like that one comes up in different forms, in different people. And I feel like I think we all have, like, every person, not just every guy, probably has that in a way where you like that primal instinct that's like suppressed in you somewhere,
like the animalness that doesn't fit into society.
Yeah
Or is harmful to society.
Yeah.
to Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Is it anything like, I'm tempted to bring up Peter Pan because it's almost a mirror where he's intended to go and grow up, but he refuses to go to the place that he's destined to go. He doesn't want to go into manhood. He wants to stay a child forever.
Mm.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. It's kind of more like a childlike form of it or something of that. Yeah.
And he wants to arrest others in a similar state. And
Mm.
he's also very good at being a boy.
Mm.
It's not
Yeah.
like he's a failure in his realm.
Mm-hmm.
Goodness, that story, man. That book. Have you guys read that book or no?
A long time ago, yeah.
That book is rich. That is just full of good stuff. Yeah.
Mm.
Because he is like it's such a fun book because he's not the hero of the story necessarily.
Mm.
There's just kind of all these different archetypes. But I love that. What is it? It says that there's a certain kiss, Mrs. Darling's like on the corner of her mouth that only Peter Pan can get, sort of.
Hmm.
It's just like that divine child, even though he's childish and doesn't deserve that kiss, he's like the only one that can still get it from her.
Hmm.
That's a book.
Mm.
So Mitch, give me a character. Which one you got? Come up with one right now. Right now.
What about this as an archetype? Is an actor?
Mm.
So what would that? Could you say more about that?
This one has to be handed an identity,
Mm.
and doesn't keep it. And I guess if they're not handed one, has to craft one, but it's not in the same sense that you're born with one or
Mm.
have one that you own.
It's like a shapeshifter.
Yeah,
Like Mystique in the X-Men. Or
I-
what do you think? What do you think? Do you think that's a similar idea, or is it different?
Well, I thought of chameleon at first, but then I thought there's more agency to this archetype, I think, and less primal biology, and more conscious choice, and not always choosing a role that fits in with the exact surroundings necessarily either. Right?
Mm.
Might pick something that counters it, or that challenges it. This is the actor archetype, maybe.
Mm. Mm.
So you're saying it's not like a chameleon though, and it's not like Mystique because it would.
Well, I'm not super familiar with Mystique, but not like a chameleon because it transcends a survival mechanism, and it doesn't always have to mirror or match the surroundings that it's in.
I see. Okay.
It might have a 100 different reasons for taking on a role. And
Mystique is the oldest friend of Charles Xavier and Magneto.
okay, Mystique was not the Jennifer Lawrence character, is it? Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah. There's a character in Game of Thrones, Arya. She goes to this place where she the Hall of Faces. Is that what it's called? I don't know. And she kind of becomes a little assassin in that way, but you get to they basically collect people's faces and you get to put on someone else's face and be them and she does it. The reason they do it is kind of to assassinate people, or it's, I guess, to gather information too. She can kind of go undercover. Here's a question. That passage in John we just brought up that I questioned you about was Jesus being an actor, where he went up.
Well, he went up so that he wouldn't be recognized, right?
Yeah.
Well, my theory now is that because I earlier on it seems like he's always trying to downplay the public figure aspect of what he's doing, in John specifically. I can't remember which other place I drew that line to, but in a couple different places he's downplaying the public figure aspect of it, because that's not the means. I mean, it's almost inevitable, but it's not the means in which he's hoping to accomplish what he needs to accomplish.
Yeah, I think it says that. He says like he has no need that man needs to testify for him or something because he knows what.
Okay, yeah. There's even more to it. I mean, I've been thinking of it in terms of something that his followers should emulate as they try to, because a lot of people think, you know, especially a lot of public figures will kind of give that as their reasoning behind getting to their level of fame or recognition. Like, I'm doing this for X. And the answer might be, well, you shouldn't do this for X, you know? And I think you do see a lot of people who have a wide audience that are not public figures in the sense that we normally think about it, that are decidedly not making much of themselves or trying to brand themselves. And that seems to be the way to do it.
Do you mean that their audience is almost accidental?
Mm-hmm. And again, inevitable, like with Jesus, it's inevitable, but it's not the goal. It's not ever the public figuring is never the tool by which they're getting their message out.
You know what's interesting is there's a story I really love. It's Avatar: The Last Airbender, and you have this character, the main character, who has this destiny that he was born into, that it's a burden that he's destined to bear that he doesn't want to bear. So he has to come to grips with being something. He doesn't choose. He has a destiny that he doesn't choose. He doesn't have any agency because there's something slated for him to do that is inevitable.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that in the Jesus story.
I think we all experience that. I think.
That's Simba in The Lion King too. He's out trying to make his own path, and this love interest comes and she says, "You're not living up to what you're meant to do." And that's Jason and I talked about this before you got here. This exact story.
The Lion King.
Yeah, because he's got a destiny that he can't afford. Other people depend on him to live up to it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't feel like modern people think much about destiny, or what's your duty to do, or what's your destiny to be.
Well, it's across the board of what your life is about. The going narrative seems to be, what is right in your own eyes. Just the downfall of man from day one. What somebody was saying that was the origin of evil is mankind deciding that they could decide what evil was.
So what is our destiny?
This is
What is our destiny?
Yeah.
As humans in toto?
Do you mean us?
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah. Well, I mean, it would scale up, right? And our destiny would ultimately be the same as humans.
Maybe.
I would think. I mean, we might do different things, but that would be the same, I think, aim, right? For all. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I'm legitimately asking. It's not. I don't know.
Well,
exactly.
I'm not sure. I have the impression that there's something about the way we tell these hero myths. It's a rare thing that someone would recognize and follow their destiny. And it's not as if it happens to everyone, but there's something feels wrong to me about this idea that there's this Borg type destiny that everybody is meant to uniformly
Yeah.
achieve. Something about that doesn't feel right. So I'm an individualist
That's what you're saying. Yeah.
on this subject.
I could imagine a some destiny for all mankind, and then little sub destinies within them.
Mm.
It's probably more how I'd envision it.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I was thinking too. Maybe something along those lines. Like ultimately, I think the destiny for all of humanity is something like love, where it's a perpetuating, ever growing love uh, for one another and through one another, all those things. But then individually, that looks completely different for each person.
Yes,
How you live out.
because some people might perpetuate ever increasing love by being hateful.
Say more about that.
I don't know if I can, but well, just off the cuff, that it would provide a counterbalance, or it would magnify love in how it would make Sodom and Gomorrah look good and how bad it was, is what
I see.
but anyways, yeah, I think, but obviously everyone's.
It sounds like our friend Alex said that what Putin did in Ukraine made Ukrainians come together in a way that they'd never done before.
So there's just a random example. If we agreed to the presupposition that the ultimate destiny of mankind was to always be increasing love.
It's hard too, because you want to come together over the right things. I think that's what and unify under something eternal, something meaningful, like I said. Because we could unify or come together over things that are harmful, I guess. That was the one thing that was immediately concerning to me. And I don't know, I still haven't got into politics of it at all, but just with that whole situation, I was like, I hope we aren't unifying over finding a common enemy and finding a scapegoat type thing, 'Cause I don't know that that's ever gonna do. I'm very hesitant about that, to be like, here's the bad guy, let's all get him, stone him. Maybe, I mean, it is a way to unify for sure, but then what do you do when he's dead?
Find another boogeyman and unify over that search.
Yeah. So what?
I need to go. I need to go eat some dinner with Ruthie.
I'm getting hungry too. Go eat some
Married
pizza.
man. I
I did. I wanted to ask you that
It's
question.
a short,
again,
limited time to do it. It's like a window right after marriage where you can make married man joke.
There's a scripture about that. When Jesus calls them, one guy says, "I can't come. I'm married." So it's in there. I'm not making it
I know
up.
what you're talking about.
But I did wanted to ask you that again though. What's your destiny, Craig? Did you know it? What is your
That's
destiny?
gonna be his destiny is to go have dinner with his
Yeah.
beloved.
I'll tell you that next time when we all talk
right.
about our quests.
Go find
All
Mufasa
right,
in the
everybody-
stars.
Bring your quest.
All right.
BYOQ.
All right,
I'll see
guys.
you later.
See ya.